vehicle repair, once the transmission's out of the vehicle. And then we'll go back through this and refresh anything that you want to revisit. Still missing two. I haven't heard from either one of them, but I guess we're, give a couple more minutes, but. Also, reassigned dealer assignments today. Okay.
Oh, my goodness, where's my notebook?
Can I go first?
It's under your, no, yeah.
Oh, I swear I'd lose my head if it wasn't attached. Oh, I had some questions from, I only had two. I didn't get that far in the chapter. But the speeds on page 182, third, second, and first. Oh, it says
What page?
on 1682.
1682.
Yeah, I just wanted some clarification because it just confused me a little bit.
Okay.
Alright, so where it says, at the very bottom, first, one or low, the first or low position is used for slowing the vehicle while descending long grades. But the last sentence says, this gear selection is used for the steepest grades at the lowest possible speed. That confused me for some reason.
Okay.
Because I understand that it's used for slowing while descending. Okay, that's understandable, that's fine. But then it says it's used for the steepest at the lowest. So is that when you're going uphill for an incline? Is that what it's talking about?
Down.
Oh, so it's still talking about descending.
Right.
Oh, okay. I don't know why I mixed that up.
So you see where it says that it uses engine compression braking?
Yes.
When you downshift a vehicle manually, it will slow itself down. That's the reason. And the car won't go very fast in first gear because of the gear ratio.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's really steep and you're going really slow, then you would just use first gear. And the purpose of that is so you're not riding your brakes and overheating your brakes.
Okay. Okay. Now it makes sense. Okay, thank you. And then the second question on page 1685, and I may have missed this, but it says the Lapierre gear set is constructed by connecting a planetary gear set in front of the Ravenel gear set.
Uh-huh.
So why does and again, I may have just missed this or overlooked it, but why does the Lapierre have to go in front of the like why are they using two gear sets? I thought the Ravenel was for
Okay,
one and the
so what they're doing is they're just compounding planetary gear sets to give you more gear ratios.
ah.
So
that's more for
right,
okay.
right, for more speeds in the transmission.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So, okay, so to create like a 6-speed or a 10-speed or whatever. So you just put more planetary gear sets, you compound them.
Oh, okay, thank you. That was all my questions so far.
Okay, I'll give them a couple of minutes, they're not here, we're just gonna go. right, we should be on 1711-135. This goes through a little bit of diagnosis and in-vehicle service. Okay, we're going to go through the process of diagnosing transmission problems, procedures, and performing in-vehicle service. That means something that can be done with the transmission in the vehicle, okay? A lot of repairs don't require the transmission to be removed. You can do it with it in the car, okay? That would be in-vehicle service. First thing we do, as with anything, verify the customer concern. Make sure that you can identify the problem the customer is complaining about, okay? Fluid check.
Morning.
How you doing?
Good.
As we talked about yesterday, some will have a dipstick for the transmission, some will not. If it doesn't, best thing to do is look up the procedure to check the fluid level. More than likely, if it hasn't been leaking, it's probably not low, but it is possible. Okay? Test drive it under the same conditions as the owner. Whatever they said it's doing, whatever speed they said it's doing, drive it under those same conditions, because maybe that's the only time you're going to be able to duplicate the problem, right?
Right, and I'm sorry, quick question. Typically though, if there's a slip in the transmission, if you feel it slipping, that means it's low on fluid, right?
If there's a what?
Slip,
What do you mean?
like if it's slipping?
Oh, if it's
between
slipping?
Yeah, that usually means that it's low on fluid, right?
It could be an internal problem. I suppose it could be low on fluid, but most of the time if the transmission is low on fluid, you'll be able to tell that it's been leaking. The fluid isn't just going to evaporate or disappear. You see what I'm saying?
Oh, okay.
If you're not seeing a visible leak underneath the car, it's probably not low, and if it's slipping, you got an internal problem. Clutch is slipping, something like that. Transmission's probably just worn out. Okay? You can use a scan tool to command shifts on electronically shifted transmissions. So you can put a scan tool in there and you can command it to shift it to whatever gear you want to see if the solenoids and the electrical portion of it are working, all right? Obviously, there's going to be diagnostic trouble codes stored if there is a failure. Okay. Looking at the scan tool and the information that is provided on there, it will assist you in determining the root cause of the problem. Technical service bulletins are always helpful. If you are working at a dealer, you'll have access to that. Some of them you can get aftermarket. It says 30% of all problems can be solved with technical service bulletins. Okay? I don't know how accurate that is, but they are certainly helpful in certain cases. The transmission or transaxle identification when ordering parts, the VIN number is pretty much going to give the parts people all the information they need. You wouldn't have to worry probably too much about that. Going to go through stall testing the converter. That's performed to verify the proper operation of the torque converter. Automatic transmission with a dipstick, it will have a fluid level indicator. It may have a clip on it to keep the dipstick from coming out under pressure. Firm seal helps water from getting into the fluid, which can cause severe damage to clutches and bands. Normal dipstick marking, typically add is going to be a half a quart. Always follow the instructions on the dipstick. See where it says hot? Okay, if it's reading full up to this line and it's cold, it's over full. Because when it warms up, it's going to be over full. Okay, that's why it says full hot here. Okay, when the transmission's warmed up, it should not go past that mark. All right. Please let me know if you're going to be late from now on.
I'll be right on him.
Okay, well, I didn't know that. So let me know, all right? Okay. We're on page 1711, guys, second to last chapter, 135. Okay. On some of these transmissions with no dipstick, there's going to be a plug somewhere. Sometimes on the side of the case, sometimes it may be right in the middle of the pan. You will pull that plug out, and what you're going to look for is fluid to drip out of there. Okay? You should just get just a little bit, like maybe a drop per second with the engine running normally, but again, check the information, make sure you're doing it right. Temperature of the transmission fluid will be displayed on the scan tool. Sometimes it requires the transmission to be at a certain temperature before you check the fluid. So again, just make sure you follow the specified instructions for whatever vehicle you're working on, whatever transmission it's got. Most factory level scan tools are capable of bidirectional control. That means you can control certain outputs on the vehicle with the scan tool, okay? In which case, in this particular instance, you could command it to shift into whatever gear you wanted it to. It will also give you shift solenoid information as far as current readings, stuff like that, whether it's shorted, whether it's open, to help you diagnose shift solenoid related problems. Scan tool is pretty much the only way that we can do anything with cars anymore. You got to have that information, right? This is just a tech tip that says you would ask a friend, wouldn't you? This is true for anything. If you got a problem with the car, ask one of the other guys. They're always willing to help each other out, all right? So don't think you got to figure it out on your own, or if you don't know, then it's just not going to happen. Okay, we're all there to help each other out. So if you got a problem, whatever it happens to be, there's always help available. Okay, this little thing right here, sometimes you'll see in the book, those are just case studies of certain vehicles that have had problems. This was a very common problem years ago. Torque converter clutch solenoids were sticking. I talked about that a little bit yesterday. What would happen is once the car warmed up, you come to a stop, the car would stall. Customer had the car towed in. By then it was cooled off and you could take it for a drive and you couldn't duplicate the problem. Works fine. So we did this before we figured out what was going on. Give them back the car, they drive it around for a couple of days, they bring it back, same problem. They're mad. I told you I had a problem with my car and you didn't fix it. Couldn't duplicate it. You didn't drive it far enough, you didn't get it hot enough, okay? Typical torque converter clutch solenoid for GM vehicle. This can be serviced without removing the transmission, okay? That is one of those on-vehicle repairs. As we go through this and it talks about testing, the ASC questions, some of them are going to say a vehicle needs a certain part. Is this an on-vehicle or off-vehicle repair, okay? On-vehicle means you can do it with the transmission in the car. Off-vehicle means it has to be removed, all right? Just so you know the difference. Okay. 4-cylinder GM engine has a stall speed of 2,350 RPM. Notice the gear selectors in drive. Speedometer is reading 0, but tachometer is reading about 2,200 RPM. Stall testing with torque converter. This is just going to give you a little animation about a stall test. If you do this, just don't overheat the transmission because it will create a lot of heat doing that, okay? Just don't, they call that power braking sometimes, okay? Put it in gear, put your foot on the brake and you give it gas and just be careful not to overheat the transmission. Okay, visual inspection for fluid leaks. Due to gravity, all the forward movement of the vehicle, the fluid leaking will go downward and toward the rear of the vehicle. We've talked about this with oil leaks before, okay? They're all going to end up on the bottom. They're all going to get pushed toward the back, so just kind of trace it to wherever the origin of the leak is, not necessarily where you're going to see the oil itself. As with anything in the cars, you can use dye in transmission fluid, in pretty much any fluid to help detect leaks, okay? A lot of times that will involve the use of a black light. Sometimes the location of the fluid leak is easy to see, other times it can be difficult to find the exact location. Look closely at parts or places where O-rings, gaskets are used. Those are common areas for leaks. Such as right here, the extension housing on the transmission. As you can see, this is bolted together right here. There's a seal or a gasket there. Place for a possible leak. Again, if you do have dye installed in the fluid to find a leak, which for the most part you shouldn't have to do that, but every once in a while it might be necessary. Yeah.
Real quick, every time they put up a picture with like, you know, dye and everything, with the black light on it, we never actually see like what the oil looks like with the dye in it. So like a little later when we get some time, like after we finish the chapters, can we check that out? Cause I'm pretty sure I know what it looks like, but just you know, be clear.
Okay. Okay, TCC, or torque converter clutch diagnosis. Normally, as we talked about a little bit yesterday, the torque converter clutch will not engage, typically below 25 or 30 miles per hour. Transmission is in second or third overdrive gear depending on the speed and throttle position. To test for proper operation of the torque converter clutch, drive the car, watch either the tachometer on the dash or connect the scan tool to observe engine RPM. You can also look and see on the scan tool if the torque converter clutch is on or off just by looking at the scan tool. Normally you're going to get a code for that if there's a problem with it anyway, but pressure testing. Pressure testing involves connecting a pressure gauge to pressure taps located on the outside of the transmission or transaxle. Transducers are on the vehicle and will provide an actual pressure reading with a scan tool. A lot of times you won't have to use a mechanical pressure gauge on it. The scan tool will have the pressures on it a lot of times. They use those pressure transducers, so it makes it easier for you. Some of them will have these pressure taps, check different pressures on the transmission, but chances are you probably won't have to do that. This just shows pressure gauges hooked up to the transmission. Different parts, line pressure, low reverse. Okay. In-vehicle service. Some transmissions will not have a pan and filter. Okay, there's no service filter, serviceable filter. In order to do like a transmission fluid exchange or flush or whatever, you have to hook it up to one of the flush machines. Okay, there's no pan, there's no filter, so you can't actually do a service on it that way like you can with some of them. If the pan has excessive friction material in it and wear metals such as lead or copper from bushings, that is obviously a problem. Some of them do have the replaceable filters. If it's got a removable pan, it's going to have a filter in it. Okay, if it doesn't have one. Flushing has to be done with the machine on the ones that do not have a serviceable filter. Remember we talked about the band yesterday, the adjustment on it. There is an adjustable adjustment point on those. Some of the transmission, they don't all have that. Okay. Procedure involves tightening the adjustment nut or bolt to the specified torque reading and then backing off the specified number of times or turns, probably what they're trying to say there. So linkage adjustment, that is just your shift linkage, okay? The connection between your shifter and the actual transmission. Most of the time there's no adjustment on those. They're just the cable and everything is set up to work. Once you hook it up, it's adjusted properly, but sometimes they will have an adjustment possible on those. If for some reason the transmission isn't going into the gear that the selector says it's in, it may need a cable adjustment, okay? Draining the fluid from the transmission if it has a pan. Good idea to not take all the bolts out at the same time. Leave one or two bolts in. That way the pan can kind of drop down and drain, so you don't have to try to hold that pan and pull it down when it's full of fluid. Certainly don't want transmission fluid all over you. Okay, so if you saw that, would you be concerned? You pull the transmission pan
Oh, yeah.
off, you stick your finger in there and you go, wow, that got a lot of stuff in there. Would you be concerned about that?
Definitely.
Yes.
Yeah?
Looks like chocolate.
Mm-hmm. What does it say?
Normal amount of wear
Yep.
material in the bottom of the automatic transmission pan. Why does it get so thick like that?
Just less material, just wear over time?
Oh, like the
Normally,
dust
if
and
you don't
everything?
see anything shiny, anything metal, metallic looking, it's probably okay.
Probably okay.
Yeah, probably okay. If it's working okay, it's probably is. So, not necessarily a big deal if you saw something like that, but, let's say you did another service on it 20,000 miles later or whatever, and it looked like that again, it's probably the point where it's worn out, but you might see that on the first, service. Always make sure the filter is secured the way it's supposed to be. Some of them will have a little retainer to keep the filter in place. They also have an O-ring on them. It goes up into the transmission case here. Sometimes when you pull this filter out of there, that O-ring will stay in the case. Make sure that it doesn't. If it does, make sure you get it out of there. You don't want two of them in there, okay? Your fluid exchange machine, that hooks up to the transmission cooler lines. You will put new fluid in one container of the, in the machine. The other one will be empty. You just hook that up, start the car, and it does a fluid exchange. Pushes the old fluid into an old container, sucks the new fluid back up into it, and will do a complete fluid exchange.
So how many miles, I'm sorry to go back a little bit, this gunk in the pan, how many miles is that? For that normal wear in the pan?
How many miles would that be?
Yeah, about, cause you said 20,000, like if you serviced it again, about 20,000 miles later and you saw it, then it would be a concern.
Probably.
So what is this one about?
How many miles would that have on it?
Yeah,
I would guess at least 20 or 30,000.
okay,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah, you shouldn't see that after, 10,000 miles probably.
okay, okay, thank you.
Okay, flush machine, just showing you how it's hooked up to the transmission cooler lines. Anybody seen a transmission flush done in the shop? No? No? Okay.
We just do it from out of the car.
Oh, you did?
Remember when you came in, we're talking, and we're all very transmission.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
In the middle.
Yeah, that's
Two
right.
plugs were
Mhm.
one draining and the other one.
Yeah, that's right. I remember seeing that.
There's like three of them.
Did
They're
you?
like typical service.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, brand new fluid, he's like, yeah, you don't really need to change it. It's just how he just does it.
Yeah. Okay. What do we got here? Rubber quart gasket. Ready to be installed, retaining bolts. Never use RTV or gasket sealer together. As you can see, this has got a magnet in the bottom of the pan that's supposed to collect any big pieces that you get in there, which I don't really understand, because if you got metal in the pan, the transmission's coming apart anyway, that magnet certainly isn't gonna save it. Okay. If you see a test question with a picture like that and it says, what is being performed, what would you say?
Adjusting a band.
Okay. Band adjustment. Okay, that's gonna be the answer to the question. I'd like to check wiring. We'll get into that when we do electrical, but all they're doing here is trying to check the integrity of the wiring in the connector if you have a problem with something electrical in the transmission. They're just showing you that that is a problem. It's very dim, obviously bright there. Indicates you should have sufficient current flow available to the transmission. To operate the solenoids correctly. Okay, once we go through this, we'll go back through everything on that. Make sure we didn't overlook anything you want to get back. What are they telling you now?
Well, I haven't talked to them, I just know it's a machine shop, so I'm just, last time I talked to them, they said the machine shop was go back there, so it take 2 weeks.
They got their head off of it?
Yeah,
Just one?
yeah, no, 2.
Both of them?
Yeah, cause it's a misfire on some of the clients said.
So it had a compression problem? It had a problem with the valve? Why would they, I don't understand why they would take the heads off it.
I'm not too sure when I talk to
I
them.
don't think they're too sure either, to be honest with you.
Yeah, when I talk to them, he was like, we gotta send it back to the machine shop because they changed the fuel injectors. And that didn't work, so they gotta take the heads off or something like that.
Hate to say it, but it sounds to me like they don't know what they're doing.
Should've took it to Ron.
Hopefully the people, you know, the engine shop is at, it's called Baja something.
Okay.
You know anything about that?
Uh-uh.
I think it's like Baja Performance or something.
Yeah.
So hopefully they know what they do.
Yeah, that's not common to have a problem like that on those cars.
Really?
Normally a misfire on those cars is, or of that particular engine is, it could be an injector, yeah, could be a coil, could be cam and lifters, which you said had already been done on it. Yeah. So, I don't know, hopefully they get it fixed.
Yes.
Okay. All right, let's go.
A scan tool can be used to D, all of the above.
Check for stored codes, command to shift, check for transmission related sensitive information, all of those are possible, okay?
When transmission fluid temperature begins to rise above a preset limit, the TCC, both A and B, is engaged and helps reduce internal temperatures.
Okay, why would it be engaged?
It gets engaged because it, let me see, I have it right here actually. Depending on the vehicle speed and the throttle position, it is often, wait, no, I'm looking at the wrong thing, I'm tripping. If the temperature of the automatic transmission fluid is too high, the computer will modify the shift pattern, usually disabling overdrive, and engage the TCC at lower speeds in an attempt to drop the
Okay.
temperature.
Okay, my question was, why does it do that? What's the purpose of engaging the torque converter clutch if the fluid temperature is too high?
To cool it down.
Okay, how does it cool it down?
Keeps it in a lower temperature. Or keep it in lower
Okay.
gear.
Okay, what I'm looking for is, if they engage the torque converter clutch, it reduces the slippage. The slippage is where the heat's
That's
created
it.
in the torque converter, so that's what I was getting at. But, okay, all right. Okay, 3.
An electronically shifted overdrive automatic transmission is equipped with a transmission fluid temperature sensor. Technician A says that the shifts may be changed if the fluid temperature is too high. Technician B says that overdrive may be disabled if the transmission fluid temperature is too high, which is correct.
Is it both?
Which is correct,
Both.
okay? Both of those are correct.
Question for some transmission, you know how my dipstick? It's true.
You got the easy one.
Yeah.
Okay, 5.
An electric controlled transmission is using a pressure gauge. A pressure gauge where below specifications. Technician A says the effective torque converter is likely to cause. Technician B says if it shifts while the fluid noise could be the cause. Which step is correct?
Both.
Neither?
I didn't know.
It's a
You didn't know?
It's a pressure test.
Okay, so what are we doing? We're testing the pressure using a pressure gauge, right?
Yep.
Pressures were below specifications. Would a defective torque converter affect that?
Yes.
I don't
Yes.
think so. I'm not sure.
What do you guys think?
I say yes.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yes. No?
Would a defective shift solenoid cause the pressure to be low?
No.
Oh, the torque converter, is with the fluid economy.
Yes, I got that.
Become overheated.
There's no pressure to test. It's deep.
So
They're doing
I
a
have a
pressure
question.
test, so it wouldn't involve about none of them.
I'm sorry?
If they're doing a pressure test, it wouldn't involve none of those, right?
If you're doing a pressure test,
Well, it wouldn't revolve around those.
I'm not sure what you're trying to say.
Like, you wouldn't do a pressure test on a torque converter, right?
You can't.
Well, what the question's asking is, or telling you, the technician is checking the pressure on transmission with pressure gauge. It's lower than it should be. They're asking, are either one of these possible to be causing the low pressure? The torque converter would not cause the low pressure. The torque converter drives the pump, but it doesn't affect the pressure. Okay, the pump or the pump regulator, something like that is problem. Shift solenoid is strictly just to shift the transmission. It wouldn't have anything to do with the pressure. Okay, so neither one of those is correct. All right?
When changing the automatic transmission filter, always install an extra O-ring False.
True. But is that extra or like a new one? Is that what it's saying?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you the reason that question is up there.
That's
Because
true.
this actually happened. Remember when I was showing you the picture of the filter?
Yeah.
And I said, when you pull the filter out of there, it's got an O-ring on it that seals the pickup tube. Sometimes when you pull that filter out to change it, the old O-ring will stay up in the transmission case and the tech doesn't notice it. So then you put the new filter in, and now you have two of them in there, and it causes a problem. So
Oh,
just
I
make sure you
think it
get
is
the old one
meant
out
a
if it
new
happens.
one.
Yeah. Definitely don't put two in there or install
Oh,
an
I
extra.
got the simplest question wrong.
Yeah.
It's true.
I'm sorry.
The question?
The question
false.
is false, yeah. Yeah. Definitely not.
And electronically shifted automatic transmission operates okay in reverse, but the vehicle does not shift at all when moving forward. Technician A says that a defective torque converter is the likely cause. Technician B said that a defective shift solenoid could be the cause. Which technician is correct? Vote.
Is it B?
Is it A?
Okay. We have an electronically shifted transmission. It operates okay in reverse, but it does not shift at all when moving forward. Okay. Here we go. Torque converter is the likely cause. Technician A. Is Technician A right or wrong?
Right.
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 I say it's wrong.
No, wrong.
But why?
Okay, reverse.
Because,
What is the problem? Vehicle does not shift.
The torque converter shifts it, so,
Would a defective torque converter cause the transmission not to shift? Nothing to do with it.
yeah.
What do the shift solenoids do?
Tells you what gear you're in. Well,
Defective shift solenoid is the likely cause if it does not shift.
I got that right. Why did I say?
Okay, B, okay? What did you have for your answer?
I had C, but I just remembered the torque converter only like.
Oh, yeah, it won't have anything to do with the shifting or fluid pressure or anything like that. Okay, remember I said if you see this picture, you'll know what's going on?
Yes.
This should be easy, right?
Adjusting band.
B, all right.
Two technicians are discussing an automatic transmission that does not move in drive or reverse. Technician A says that a defective PCM or TCM could be the cause. Technician B says that a defective or worn pump could be the cause. Which technician is correct? I do not know.
is it C?
You do not know.
Why not
Okay,
both?
does anybody know?
I'll put A.
You got A?
I guessed A, but I'm not sure of that at all.
Okay. So again, we look at what the condition is. We have a car that will
I'll say
not
A.
move. Drive or reverse. Start the car, you put it in gear, it will not move. Okay?
I'll say A.
Mhm.
Why would the computer have anything to do with moving?
Backwards.
You're right. That has nothing to do with it. You can take the computer out of the car and throw it in the trash, and the car will still move. Okay? Will not cause it. If the pump was worn, meaning you didn't have enough fluid pressure, would the car not move?
Right, yeah.
Okay?
A vehicle is being tested using a scan tool. Technician A says that the throttle position sensor could read between 0 and 1 volt. Technician B says that a factory or factory level tool is needed to check for proper voltage and current of the shift solenoids. Which technician is correct?
B,
B?
factory scan tool.
Okay. Why is A wrong?
Shouldn't it be between some? Oh shit! Shouldn't the volt be higher?
0 to 5 volt, not 0 to 1 for throttle position sensor. Question 1 is a repeat. Question 2. Tech A says the PCM should be checked for any stored diagnostic trouble codes when diagnosing a transmission fault.
See.
Tech B says you should check technical service bulletins. Both of those make sense, don't they?
Yes.
True.
Transmission fluid leak can be caused by an overfilled transmission.
Can it?
They would just flood it.
Is there like a limit?
Well, it would already overflow before even sealing it. So if there's a fluid leak, it'd be while you're filling it. So I
Can
would
be
say false.
caused by an overfilled
Because
transmission.
you can't really overfill it. It pushes itself back out once it's full.
False?
False.
True.
Well, true, yeah, but
'Cause remember
How,
he
how
said-
many how many trues do we have?
Transmission fluid leak.
If you overfill anything, it's gonna leak.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. All right. Number 4, Tech A says stall speed of more than 200 RPM above spec indicates torque converter stator one-way clutch is not holding.
Yes.
Tech B says the stall speed is 250 to 350 RPM below specification. Possible clutch or band slippage.
Isn't it it? Because when it starts, the RPM go higher instead of below.
You going with A? Anybody else have any thoughts on that?
Don't.
I don't say both.
I don't like numbers. What?
Both incorrect. Okay. Inspecting the transmission pan. Tech A says some friction material at the bottom of the pan is normal. We saw that in the picture, right? Tech B says if any metal parts stick to the magnet, further investigation is needed. What do you think?
But some friction material at the bottom of the pan is normal. B is right. That's
Some friction material at the bottom of the pan is
Yeah.
normal?
They're both
Yep.
correct.
Yeah, they're both correct.
Is that correct? Is that correct?
Yeah, remember he said a normal wear would be like gunky, and that'd just be like
Mhm.
little extra stuff at the bottom, making it thick.
Yep.
They are both correct. We did 6. Fluid exchange can be performed using what?
All of the above.
Okay? Any of those things. Some transmissions do not have a dipstick, that is true.
All of the above.
Yes, we did that one. Product stall test procedure.
If you haven't read the procedure for a stall test, you're not gonna know what this is. You may take a guess at it, looking for one that's not part of the stall test.
A?
A?
Yeah.
A is right.
We'll wipe for 2 minutes.
Well, that's the wrong answer, that's what
Yeah.
you don't wanna do. Shift transmission to neutral line 1,000 RPM for the 60-second follow the stall test to cool it down. The stall test gets the transmission kind of hot, right? Okay. We are on our last chapter already. This involves what they call unit repair, that is taking the transmission apart and doing a rebuild, overhaul, repair of some sort. which again may be something you will never do. However, yes,
The stall test, what page is that on? Cause I'm looking on 1714 and it says stall testing the torque converter. But, and then it says the stalling Impala, you'd ask a friend. Am I looking at the chart 135 too? No.
okay, so don't confuse the engine stalling, that means the engine quit running. Don't confuse that with the stall speed test on a torque converter, they're two different things.
Right, so where it says stall testing the torque converter on page 1714, it goes to step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5, but I don't see those numbers. That you had up there. Even on page 1716, I don't see it.
Should there be any numbers or whatever the
Well,
manufacturer's?
exactly, that's why there's no numbers there. It says drive the vehicle until it's up to operating temperature. Check the stall speed specification, so now you know what the numbers are, because they're not the same for every car.
Right, so that question that had the numbers on there, where did they come from?
They were just using as an example. Is
Okay.
if it's 250 RPM above or below or whatever, they were just using that as an example for a test question. It wasn't, those aren't set numbers or, they don't mean anything, they just pulled numbers out.
Okay.
So those numbers don't mean anything. They're just telling you, if the transmission torque converter is supposed to have a stall speed of 1400 RPM and it's 1650, okay, is that out of spec, is it too high, you know, what's going on, that kind of thing.
Oh, okay.
Okay, 250 above what it's supposed to be or below, or, they were just using that as an example for a test question, but those numbers you don't have to worry about.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, so we have some, 1722 has some questions. Also, we didn't get to the ones at the end of the other chapter either, did we? We didn't do one on 1710 for the last chapter, did we? Or the one we did yesterday?
No.
Okay, well, let's go over those just so we've done it. So let's go to 1710 and go through these questions. All current model automatic transmissions are designed to use.
What was that?
Question 1 on 1710.
All current red dyed oil.
Let's see, where's our fluid question?
See, I think he said that was all in
Highly modified?
Japanese cars.
They all use friction modified fluid.
So it's B.
All current original equipment manufacturer automatic transmission fluids are highly modified. The answer is going to be D,
What page is that?
1710. What page is the answer on?
Yeah.
1692. Bottom left column where it says types. Number 3, highly friction modified.
Yeah.
Okay. Question number 2. Two technicians are discussing automatic transmission transaxle coil pumps. Tech A says that many automatic transmissions or transaxles use a variable displacement pump. Tech B says that the pump is driven by the torque converter.
Both.
Both of those are correct, right? Okay. Technician A says automatic transmission coolers are designed to cool the fluid. Well, that makes sense. Tech B says the cooler also warms it when the fluid is cold.
Mm. The cooler also warms it.
It's a cooler. Cools it down.
No, I think it's the coolant that warms it.
Okay? The transmission cooler cools the warm fluid. Does it warm the cool fluid as well?
No, the coolant warms it.
No?
Is it A?
It's actually both of them.
Wow.
They are both right. The cooler will also warm the fluid when it's cold. All right. Question number 4. The technician A says a governor is used to measure vehicle speed in a hydraulically controlled automatic transmission. Is that correct?
Yeah.
That is a correct statement, yes. Tech B says the difference between hydraulically controlled and electronically controlled automatic transmissions are the way the shift points are controlled.
Yeah, both.
True, both.
Both right. C for question 4. Force motors are
What was
controlled.
3?
I'm sorry.
What was 3?
3 was
C.
both.
Oh.
Both of
wait.
them.
Then what was 2? I must have missed one or something.
2 is also C.
Okay, just making sure.
Force motors are controlled by the computer by what?
PWM.
Pulse width modulation B is correct. Got 2 technicians discussing one-way clutches. One says that the sprag and the roller are 2 types of one-way clutches. Is that right? Sprag or roller clutch, 2 types of one-way clutches?
Yes.
Okay. Technician B says a one-way clutch could be installed upside down
Yes.
and cause the transmission or transaxle to not function correctly.
Yes.
Remember I told you there was going to be a test question that says, could you install a one-way roller clutch backwards?
No, it's one way.
But you can install it backwards.
How? It won't fit.
Yes, it will.
Most of the parts don't fit if you
Well,
try to
that's-
put it backwards.
That's why this is in here.
It won't, it won't
What happened?
flush in the other parts
Well,
that you go
let
one
me
way
ask you a
with.
question. If you were installing this clutch disc, could you put it in this way or this way? Yep. One way's right, one way's wrong.
But if you go and connect the other part to it, it won't be right.
You're right.
So,
Which is why this is in here, because it is possible to do it, you have to pay attention to it. Okay? A lot of times on a part that you can put in the wrong way, it will give you an indication somewhere that you've done it wrong, or, remember we talked about these little
yeah.
cam caps
Mhm.
there. It's gonna have a number, it's gonna have an arrow. So, could you put this right here? Sure you could, but it's not gonna work. It'll fit, but it'll be a problem.
So you can, and technically you can install it.
Technically, you can install it backwards
Okay.
or upside down, okay?
So both?
They are both correct, yes. What part of the planetary gear set called, what is it called that's being held by a band?
Bell number?
Reaction.
It's A.
D seems like the obvious answer, but it's not. The held member of a planetary gear set is the reaction member. All right. What is the purpose and function of an accumulator? We talked about accumulators yesterday. Anybody remember what they do?
Isn't it?
Is it, which one, D? It's not D.
I thought it was C.
C.
Yeah.
Cushion and dampen pressure surges. Sick balls used in the valve body constructed of steel, nylon, rubber, or could it be any of those?
Any?
What's that?
Any?
Could be any of them, yep. So 9 is D. And we went through this question, but we'll go over it again. Deck A says the default or limp in gear, usually second or third. Is that a true statement?
Yeah.
It is. Deck B says that a transmission clutch band or solenoid chart shows the technician what's being applied in each gear.
They're both correct.
And yes, it does. Okay. Okay, let's get to the chapter quiz for the one we just went through on 1722. Technician A says the PCM should be checked for any stored codes. Technical service bulletins, we did that question. You're gonna get C for number 1. B for number 2, we did that one as well. We did 3, I believe. Right. 3 is both of them. 4 is D, we did that one too. Caution should be used when performing a stall test because of what? Question 5.
All of them?
Mm-hmm. That is correct. We did question 6. They were both wrong. Low pressure could not be caused by the torque converter or a shift solenoid. Number 7, 2 bolts should be loosened and the other bolts removed when removing the transmission pan. Is that right?
Yes.
Yep. Leave a couple bolts in it so it doesn't just come off all at once. It's easier to drain if you leave a couple bolts in it and let it just drain itself as it hangs off. Okay. If there's any friction material found in the pan, it needs to be overhauled.
What is overhaul?
Taken out and fixed or checked out. Would it be A?
Just A, yeah. A little bit of friction material in the pan is normal. Okay? Does not need to be overhauled if there's a little bit of friction material in the bottom of the pan. Okay, friction material means your clutches. You know, the material of your clutches, kind of like your brake pads wear or your clutch disc wears if you got a manual transmission. It's normal, okay? Fluid leaks can be checked using
All of them?
any of those. Fluid exchange can be formed, any of those. And we did number 10, that's both of them. All right, last chapter. Steps involved in removing and disassembling an automatic transmission or transaxle. How to reassemble, reinstall. First thing you need to do. What is the first thing you need to do before you remove a transmission from a vehicle?
Verify.
If you pull a transmission out to do a repair and you find out it just needs a shift solenoid, you're gonna be bad. You can change the shift solenoid without pulling it out. Okay? Verify that the fault is inside the transmission. In-vehicle repairs. Parts and components that may be replaced with the transmission still in the vehicle include pressure switches, range switches, turbine and output speed sensors, valve body, gasket seals, unless you're talking about a torque converter seal or a pump seal or something like that, then it would have to be removed. Okay. Transmission out of a Saturn did not shift correctly. One technician was ready to replace the unit. However, the other technician thought the transmission problem could be due to a fault in the valve body. Very well could have been. If you had a fault in the valve body of a transmission, would you have to pull it out to fix it?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What do you think? If you had a problem with the transmission valve body, if a valve was sticking, shift solenoid, something like that, if you had a problem in the valve body of the transmission, would you have to remove the transmission to fix it?
The valve body.
It's inside? Is it inside?
That's what I'm asking.
Valve body. No.
Valve body can be removed with the transmission in the vehicle, okay? What happened here? Somebody found the problem, didn't they? Broken pressure regulator spring. What would this cause?
Pressure regulator.
Low pressure.
Okay, it would. Could it be so low that the transmission wouldn't even move? The car wouldn't even move?
Yeah,
Hard to believe that something like that could cause your car not to move, right?
yeah.
Sometimes a problem that seems big is not big. Transmission identification number on the side of the unit for ordering parts, stuff like that. You may need that, but again, the VIN number would typically tell the parts people what they want to know. Removing it for service. Steps involved is going to be basically the same, whether it's front wheel drive, rear wheel drive. There's going to be a little bit of differences in the removal process. Disconnect the battery. Which one? Disconnect the negative battery cable. Whenever you disconnect the battery, negative first, okay? And if that's the only thing you're doing is just disconnecting it so you can do a service on something, you don't take the positive cable off, just a negative, all right? Obviously, you're gonna lift the vehicle, drain the fluid if you can. Disconnect the drive shaft or drive shaft axles, whatever it takes. Cooler lines, linkage, all the electrical connectors. Disconnect the torque converter from flex plate. The engine may have to be supported if you're gonna separate it in the car. Sometimes there's a holding fixture that they use to hold the engine. If you pull the transmission out, again, check service procedure. Every car's a little bit different. Coming out, mounting it to a holding fixture. They do have holding fixtures for the transmission. Torque converter checks. These will check for wetness that could indicate a leak at a welded seam. The torque converters are welded together. Not very often you'll see a leak at the seam, but good idea to look for it. Make sure the hub is not worn and the seal is replaced. Check that the one-way clutch of the stator is working. Check for end play in it. They have tools for that. They have special holding fixtures for the transmission so you can work on them on the bench. That is that special tool to check the play of the stator inside the torque converter. Those are supplied at the shop. That's not something you would have to buy if you're going to do that. Tech tip. If the transmission had an internal failure that would cause metal to go through the transmission, best to replace the torque converter. Okay? As you can see, it says here, this is because the torque converter is generally considered to be the garbage pit of the entire unit, and it collects the wear particles from the clutches, bands, all that kind of stuff. You just can't clean them out, really. Put a new torque converter in it. Cutaway of one of the converter clutch material. Obviously inside the torque converter, you can't see that. In fact, you'll never see one of those unless you cut a torque converter open. Or you happen to see the part. But valve body. Make sure all of the shift valves are clean. Use compressed air to move the valves in and out of the bores. They should be free to move and return to the home position by spring pressure. Sticking valves are a problem once in a while. Make sure the pump is not worn. And again, check the specifications on how to check for end play or whatever they want. Separator plate for the valve body. Again, it's going to have a separator plate and a couple of gaskets if it does have that type. What are we looking at here? thing with a whole bunch of passages in it, right?
Yeah.
Whole bunch of fluid passages. That is a valve body, can be serviced or replaced without removing the transmission.
It looks like a maze. It looks like a labyrinth.
It is. So yes, you can disassemble all of that stuff and check and make sure that there's no broken springs, there's no scores, there's no problems with wear. Most of the time, if you think you have a problem in the valve body, they're probably just gonna send you a new one. Or you can just order a valve body, just replace the whole valve body, okay? Air test transmission. You can air test certain clutch packs by putting compressed air to a hydraulic passage where fluid would normally go, and it will apply clutches and stuff like that, and you can actually hear them. Make sure they're working. That's what they call air testing. You're just using air instead of hydraulic fluid, okay? And as that air gets coursed through that passage, it will apply a clutch or whatever passage you happen to be checking, okay? And putting it back together, obviously the valves go in there, plugs into the retainers. Okay, this is front of a transmission with torque converter removed. This is a special tool that will remove the actual pump. Since that sits in there the way it does, you can't really get it out unless you have that special tool. Typically a couple of slide hammers. Got a special puller for the pump. That pump will have two halves to it. You gotta make sure those are aligned perfectly when it goes back together. Checking for wear with a feeler gauge. Okay, before disassembly, measure certain things such as input shaft end play. Some of them require the check or the measurement of output shaft end play. Always check and make sure you know what you're looking for, and then it doesn't do you any good to know what something is if you don't know what it's supposed to be. Clutch packs. Disassemble by removing the snap ring that holds the discs and the housing. Friction disc inspection. If they show wear on one or more or defects, the entire set is replaced. On each side of the friction disc, you'll have the steel plates. If you know a rough surface or uneven or spotty discoloration on any of those, you should replace them. Clutch piston removal. Again, snap ring holds those together. This is all just inspection of different parts. Okay, removing the snap ring on a clutch pack right there. Some of them will require the use of a press. Clutch piston, what do you think about that? Not good, right? Ring gear has damaged teeth, entire planetary gear set must be replaced. What's this guy doing?
And play.
Feeler gauge, right?
Mhm.
Checking the end play of this planet pinion gear here.
Looks like a flathead.
Looks like a what?
He looks like a flathead.
Pinion carrier end play, dial indicator, remember we talked about that? Dial indicators are for end play, run out, that kind of thing. Okay. Reassembling. Before assembling a clutch pack, soak all the friction plates in ATF. Do not put them in dry. Do air pressure checks on the clutch packs and stuff like that. Make sure they perform correctly. Bushings should be inspected or replaced. One-way clutches should be installed correctly. Why does it say that? Because you can put it in wrong. Special tools are required for something, for certain things. End plate checks, valve body checks, which we went through. All the clutch packs should be checked for proper clearance. Feeler gauge is used to check the clearance. Make sure it's within factory specs. How do you adjust the clearance in that if it's not right? This is going to be on the test. Okay.
Wait, what page is that on?
Checking the dial indicator again. More checks. Dial indicator, feeler gauge. This is just an air pressure check for clutch pack. They're going to show you how this actually works. As you put air to it, you're going to see what happens there. Listen for clutch application and make sure it doesn't leak. Seal replacement again. Clutch plates got to be soaked in ATF. Small snap ring. Okay. A lot of times bushings are brass. So what does that mean? What does that mean to you?
The bushings are brass?
Mm-hmm. A lot
It's
of times they are.
electrical conductor.
Okay. Brass is kind of a gold color, right?
Yeah.
So you pull a transmission pan down and you see gold flakes in there. You know where it came from.
Okay.
Okay. Got a bushing worn out, all right? Service information states that this one-way roller clutch should be installed as shown. Why are they telling you that? Because of the question somebody asked earlier.
Can be installed wrong.
Okay? It is possible to install it upside down. What are they doing here? This is the pump. Transmission pump assembly. Remember, it comes apart, it has two halves, goes together like that. These pump halves has to be lined up perfectly, so there's a big giant like hose clamp on here to make sure that those pump halves are lined up perfectly. The hammer is just kind of a tap to, make sure they're perfectly aligned.
Is that a two-person?
No.
So like I noticed like a lot of things, a lot of repairs you can do alone, but then there's quite oftentimes where you need another set of hands.
That is correct. A lot of times you can't do something by yourself. Luckily, you're not alone in the shop. Okay, allocator using measure input or end play of the input shaft. Another method doing the same thing. All right. Differential end play, and again, if it's a transaxle, it's going to have a differential in it. Avoid using red assembly lube. Why is that?
It may look like an automatic transmission fluid
When it
leak.
gets hot, it melts, and it may look like a transmission fluid leak. So, I don't know that that's ever been a problem, but, you know, whatever. Flushing the cooler and the torque converter. Make sure if you have a transmission failure that involves overhauling the transmission or replacing it, flush the cooler out, because you got fluid in there, and that fluid's got contaminants in it, right? Flush it out. You're not gonna dyno test a transmission, okay? On the road test, this action will help the adaptive settings get close to what they should be, help prevent damage to the unit. This procedure is not done. Make sure it doesn't have any leaks, make sure it works correctly. This is just goes through removal, and again, this is just gonna be whatever it takes to get it out, but basically, for the most part, the steps are the same as far as unbolting the torque converter and all the electrical, the cooler lines, all that stuff. All right. Well, let's go through this last one then.
Yeah.
Okay, nap time is over. You doing all right for this? Sure? All right. Is this book here the one I gave you when you, got
Oh,
yours?
yes, it is, yeah.
Okay. This is one of my extras, isn't it? All right. We'll take a break after we go through this quiz. We'll be probably pretty close to 10 o'clock by then. What is this? everybody done?
Yes.
All right.
It
It's
is-
no coincidence that you got this question.
It is not possible to install the one-way clutch backwards. False.
All right.
I'm confused at one. I knew the answer, but I said true. Air pressure checking is used to test vacuum modulators. No,
TV adjustment.
I was in the bathroom for this one.
Which one was it?
TV adjustment.
What does TV stand for?
What's TV again?
Clutch back.
What's the TV adjustment?
Throttle valve cable. On a hydraulically controlled transmission, not electronic shifted. Older style.
You know, I thought it was talking about an actual TV.
Throttle valve, that's your throttle valve cable. That, again, if it's an older transmission, it's not electronically shifted. It's gonna have that throttle valve cable, it's gonna have a governor, it's gonna have a modulator.
But it's A, right?
It is a, air pressure checks are used to test clutch packs. Okay. Number 3.
Friction disc should be blank before being installed. B, soaked in ATF.
That is the correct answer.
All the above?
We're on number 4.
Yeah. Number 3?
Well,
3 is A.
What?
I'm sorry. B, soaked in ATF. Okay.
Number 4, torque converter is normally
Reuse.
reused when transmission is without. It's false.
Right.
Oh wait, I'm so
Should we-
fucking
should we place
confused.
it?
Didn't you just say 4 was A?
4 is
Or
false.
did you say 2?
Yeah, accidentally said 3 was A.
2 is A, 3 is B, and 4 is
B
False.
or D?
which
Or
one?
3?
3?
Yeah.
Boy.
What page are you on, love?
Boy.
B,
3
soaked
boy.
in ATF,
3 is boy.
Yeah.
soaked in
Because
ATF.
no, he was going question to question back and forth. I'm fucking confused.
All right.
And 4 was A, right? Or F, B?
False.
Okay, so I had that one right. Damn it.
False.
A.
Should not reuse the torque converter if you're gonna do a rebuild in transmission. Okay, so we should be on 5.
Yeah.
Okay.
A fast learner product using the scan tool is performed to reset the
That is correct. Fast learn procedure, using a scan tool, reset the adaptive settings. 6, back in the back.
Clutch box clearance can be changed if not corrected by using a selected. I put C, not me.
So,
Put D,
Snap ring, D or C.
snap ring's one of the possibles, but it's a D. Could be any of those depending on the unit. And number 7.
Technician A says all gaskets should be discharged during tear down and keep the work area clean. Technician B says keep the old valve body gaskets intact to make sure the replacement is a perfect match. Which technician is correct?
B.
C?
See?
Yeah, both.
Okay, if you discard the gaskets, you're not gonna be able to make sure they're
That's what I was thinking of.
Yeah.
but-
Yeah, just B. That's true with anything, if you're replacing any part, don't get rid of the old stuff until you make sure the new one is exactly right. You match it up if you can, just make sure you got the right part. Okay,
Technician A says that the torque converter should be separated from the flex drive plate before removing the automatic transmission transaxle. Technician B says that the clutches should be installed dry when replacing the frictions and steels in a clutch pack.
A.
Which technician is correct?
A.
I did see both.
Should they go in dry?
but I wasn't sure, because I remember something being lubed, most things have to be lubed up.
Remember question number 3?
Soaked in ATF.
Not dry.
Knew it.
A is correct. Should you separate the flex plate from the torque converter? If you don't, you're gonna be in for a big surprise when you pull the transmission out.
That's true.
The transmission valve body should be installed using a small air ratchet. True?
Absolutely not.
False. Good. I wanted to test my thing because I wasn't sure.
The reason is, valve body bolts are very finicky and delicate. They want to be torqued
Yeah.
properly.
Okay, so I just
Okay.
want to make sure
So, yeah.
I got it right before you know.
Yeah, any type of power tool in a valve body is a bad idea. Okay, the steel disc should be done what?
All of the above.
C, clean.
There you go.
Oh.
Yeah, you shouldn't mess with them. Shouldn't sand them, you shouldn't do anything like that. Just clean them. If they look bad, replace them.
What was 8?
What was it, 8?
Yeah.
Technician A.
A? We know they're not supposed to be installed dry. And yes, you have to separate the torque converter from the flex plate.
I got a question.
Yep.
So for like brake rotors and stuff like that, like if like let's say you're on a budget or whatever and you can't get any new brake rotors, if you were to slightly sand them down a little bit, like just scuff up the rotor itself a little bit, would that be fine? Because that's what I was thinking on this, because I heard if you do that a little bit, that's good enough until you can get some rotors.
Okay,
So it
now,
can catch on to the
that's
pad.
two different things. These steels in the clutch pack on the
Yeah, I know.
transmission, don't mess with them.
Gotcha.
Just clean them. If they don't look bad, if they're scuffed, if they got hot spots or whatever in them, just throw them away.
Okay.
Okay, just find, because you're gonna replace the clutches anyway. And you got a steel plate and a clutch, so there's one of each, okay? So there'd be like, whatever, you know, say 6 steel plates and 6 clutches in one pack.
Okay.
So, on a rotor,
Yeah.
yes, if you can't afford to buy rotors and you need rotors,
Okay.
could you just replace the pads and call it a day? Yeah, you
Yeah,
could.
because I heard that from a
You could.
so-called professional on the video. So yeah, I just want to make sure. I
You,
was like, this
you
just
can,
makes
yeah.
sense.
So the bottom line is, if the rotors are warped and you're getting that pulsation when you hit the brakes, it's not gonna go away.
Got you.
Replacing the brake linings is gonna give you new brake linings, keep you from being metal to metal. But the car won't stop as good, but can you do it? Yeah,
Okay.
people do it all the time. Again, brakes aren't gonna work, because they're not gonna last as long, but you can do it. Okay. We are on the next set of questions. When assembling a pump, what is the alignment clamp used for?
Let's see.
C. Alignment to align.
Absolutely. Somebody was thinking, sometimes you can do this.
That's what I did.
Okay, good. We did that question. All of the friction and steel plates in a clutch pack should be replaced during an overhaul.
Yeah.
The fluid cooler should always be flushed when you rebuild or replace the transmission.
True.
Absolutely.
Both.
What's wrong with what's wrong with technician A?
Says all friction and steel plates.
Yeah, here's the problem. Unless these are bad, you don't have to replace them, but you are gonna replace the clutch friction disc, right? If it didn't have this in there, then you would say, yeah, be both. But in this case, it's just B. We did that question, why should red assembly lube be, looks like ETL went mouse, we did that one. Adaptive settings, we did that one.
I think where that question said not is what confused me.
Which one was that?
That one right
True or
there for
false?
it is not possible
Oh,
to install
yeah.
the one. I think
Not
I
possible.
kinda skipped over that. It is possible.
Yes, it is.
That's
So,
all I
yeah.
thought for sure.
Okay. All right, where are we at? Air pressure, clutch packs, friction disc, soaked in ATF. All of these may be repaired with a transmission in the vehicle except one of them. Which one is it?
Speed sensor.
Which one would require removing the
Oh.
transmission?
Which one would?
Valve body.
These may be repaired with the transmission in the vehicle.
Cause we just went over that, the
So
valve body
except-
can stay in.
All of these can be repaired with the transmission in the vehicle except for one of them. Which one is it?
Repaired with the transmission except
So they're asking which one would
Is it
require
C?
removal of the transmission?
Friction.
Absolutely. You can't replace the clutch discs or the friction discs without removing the transmission and taking it apart. These you can do without taking it out, okay? Okay, see you 10-15 seconds. Sorry.
You don't wanna do the quiz real quick
Except.
We can, yeah.
before our break? That way we just get that out the way.
1740 then. Everybody should be on 1740.
Slide handlers or special tools are used to remove what component?
You saw this in the picture earlier when we were going through this.
The pump.
The pump. Correct. Technician A says the sharp edges of a spool valve can be rounded using 400 grit sandpaper. Technician B says that all the valve body parts should be cleaned and then dried with low pressure filtered compressed air.
See?
C is correct. Friction disc should be hooked in ATF. Question 4 we did.
Was that A, B?
A, 4 is A, yeah, we did that one already. 5 is A, we did that one already. 6 is B, we did that one already. What part should be replaced if it's dropped?
Dropped. Like,
B.
pump.
B, yeah, if you drop a torque converter, it says you should replace it. Apparently it will damage it.
What about the pump?
Pump? I don't know. I don't know why they put pump in there.
I was like,
If you drop the pump and it messed it up, I would, then certainly that would be
Yeah.
bad. They just want to drive the point home that if a torque converter's dropped, even if it looks okay, apparently you should replace it.
Yeah.
Clutch pack clearance, how do you do that?
one.
Dealer gate.
D, yep. How much fluid moves through the transmission cooler? I don't know why we need to know that, but it's 2 quarts every 30 seconds. And we know why you should not use red assembly lube. Okay, and if you think we're done, we're not done just because we're on the last page of the book. You would think class would be over right now, right?
Done with this chapter?
Done with the
or-
class, we're at the end of the book,
Oh,
right?
yeah, we're not done with the class. We still got the practice test. I already know that.
Yeah, no, I mean, done with the whole class.